Okay. Thanks for attending today, everyone. This is EPM version 5.8 upgrade training, session number 1. My name is Ray Siegel. I'm one of the corporate trainers, EPM corporate trainers at NextGen. And today's session is going to cover an up-and-coming enhancements in version 5.8 as they relate to system administrator, some general EPM changes, things like fee tickets, patient data sheets, things along the lines, and all enhancements that are specific for meaningful use purposes. So I'm going to keep the training document available and open here because there are certain points throughout this session that I do want to reference the specific things. For example, this first enhancement, and this is a big one. All upgrading to 5.8 need to be aware that the PIN number option for logging into NextGen applications is gone in version 5.8. So when to log in, they double-click on the NextGen icon and get to the application launcher, and they click on File Maintenance, and the window opens up. There is no longer a field to enter a PIN number. So this is something clients and us internally need to be very aware of when we upgrade. You do not want to upgrade and not know what your username and password are, or be kind of stuck and not be able to log into the applications. Now, there's a primary reason for NextGen removing PIN number. Primarily, it was not HIPAA compliant. It kind of goes against HIPAA guidelines. A couple of examples here on this first page as to how it kind of is not HIPAA compliant. It's pretty easy, really, for someone to potentially log in as someone else using PIN numbers. Here's a couple of examples that I just wanted to take a couple seconds and review with you. Example number 1, a user by the name of John Smith. He's in EPM. He goes to asks change password menu option in EPM because he wants to change his password and or his PIN number. In a new PIN number of 11222, clicks OK to save it, thinking he's done, and he ends up getting this prompt in this screenshot. System requirements prevent you from changing to this PIN. Please choose a different PIN. Well, that's a good clue to John that someone else already has PIN number 111222. If he wanted to, he could log in as PIN number 111222 and potentially be logged in as somebody else. Not very compliant. Down here at the bottom below the screenshot, that same user might again go to the Tasks Change Password menu in EPM to change his PIN number from this to this. Okay, he's done great. Sandy Jones also goes in and changes her PIN from this to this, which happens to be John's old PIN number. John comes in the next morning, having a bad whatever, forgets he changed his PIN number yesterday, logs in using his old PIN number. He's now logged in as Sandy Jones. For a couple simple examples of how PIN number is not really a secure authentication. It's preferred that users log in using a username and a password, kind of a dual authentication. Who are you and what's your password, as to just that single PIN number. So with PIN number, again, I'm sorry, before I go on, let's go back to that important note. Again, it's critical for clients to be aware and prepared for this. If they have 300 users today that are all used to logging in with PIN numbers, and that was me until I got 5.8, for all my years at NextGen, I've all logged in using a PIN number. They need to, before they upgrade to 5.8, that every single user knows what their username and password is. They just need to be prepared for that change. PIN being gone, I want to show you just a couple more screenshots on this next page. In admin, the way the PIN number displayed on the login screen in the first place is because within universal preferences in system admin, in version 5.7 and prior, there's an option here called Allow Use of PINs for Login. And if you set that to true, then you this field on the login screen allowing users to log in by PIN. In 5.8, that option in universal preferences is gone. It used to be somewhere in this area. It doesn't exist anymore in universal preferences. We can turn it on or off. It's just completely gone, which means the login screen now looks like this in version 5.8. Have to pick an enterprise. We still have to pick the practice we're trying to log into, but users are forced to log in using a username and password combination. And just to give you the visual of it here in the actual application instead of looking at it on paper, I just maintenance, and I'm going to log back into file maintenance. I'm on version 5.8. Login screen. Here we are. There's no PIN number. My username, I've got to know my password. Okay. PIN has been removed as an option in universal preferences. It's also been removed in other areas of the application. So as an example, in System Admin, when we see users, we normally under a practice to a group, right-click New User, and maybe I'm setting up this user. I'm circling a section over on the right-hand side for this user that's kind of a big gray blank spot right now. Picture System Admin in version 5.7, there are two fields over here in version 5.7, PIN number and confirm PIN number. They're gone in version 5.8. So as we're setting up users, we assign them a logon name, a username, and a password. Confirm that password. No options allowed here. Someone mentioned you just logged in. Can I send the training manual? Not right now in the middle of the session. I'm happy to repost it for anybody that didn't get it at the end of the session. So if you'd hold off on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Setting up users, no more PIN number. And I'm just all along in the training document. I do need to go back to the training document. I'm not going to demo these next two options. They're really not new in version 5.8. And for purposes, I don't have time to make the changes in System Admin and show you how they work. But NextGen does also support two additional types of login. We have what's called a Windows integrated authentication and an Ldap integrated authentication. These are not new in version 5.8. They were actually added last year in version 5.7. More information on those logins, you can look at the administrator's guide for version 5.7. But here in a couple screenshots, just to summarize those two alternative logins. Universal preferences. If a client wants to use a Windows integrated login, they can use universal preferences under general options and set this option to true, a Windows integrated authentication. What that'll do to the login screen is make it appear like this. User logging in with Windows authentication drop-down pick list that I'm circling with my mouse, they would select Windows Integrated, and by selecting Windows Integrated, their username, password, and domain will default in for them. It uses their Windows login and password for their current session. So in other words, a user typically logs into Windows first before they can ever get to NextGen. So if you logged into Windows and then go to NextGen and they select Windows Integrated, it'll pull in their username, password, and domain for them. Then the only thing they're left to do is select the enterprise practice and hit login. Called Active Directory Login. Again, different setting in universal preferences. Under general options, if they set this option to true, an Ldap integrated authentication, then the screen looks very similar to what it did in the last example for Windows authentication, but in this case, they're going to pick Active Directory authentication. Active Directory authentication, they would type in their username, their password, and their domain that needs to match what's been assigned to them in System Admin. So too much more time on these two alternate login options that became available last year in 5.7. I thought they were worth mentioning and reviewing quickly here. The main thing in version 5.8, sorry for my scrolling, is the number is gone. Maybe venture to guess most clients are not using the Windows integrated or the Ldap integrated logins, just a regular login, so their login screen would look like mine did a moment ago in file maintenance, using password, enterprise, and practice. I'll continue on here, still related to the same topic. In EPM, there are some areas in EPM where we used to be able to enter a PIN. For example, that user goes to change their password or PIN number. They'd go to the Tasks menu, change password. In open and prior, they old password, a new password, confirm the new password, and then in this blank area here, there were 3 more fields: old PIN, new PIN, confirm new PIN. Well, since PIN is not a thing in 5.8 anymore, those fields are gone. So really, when a user selects change password, that's all they can do now. Change password and or PIN, it's change only password. In EPM, where PIN number could be involved is when we're sealing or unsealing chart notes. So I'm going to patient's chart. This note, I want to make sure it never gets changed, nobody messes with it, nobody modifies it, nobody tries to delete it, so I'm going to seal it. And I've got a window in my way here. So I'm going to right-click on that note to seal it. In 7 or prior, the user sealing the note could either enter their password or PIN number. Well, 5.8, again, PIN number is gone. So if you want to seal a note in version 5.8, you're going to key in your password. Example, it's an EHR example. Pull over here if and when a user needs to lock or unlock an encounter. They right-click on an encounter, and in this example, I'm going to click on Lock It. I'm ready to lock that encounter. Again, in version 5.7 and prior, they could enter their password, lock it, or their PIN number. Here in 5.8 is the only option. There are areas in either EHR and or in EPM where PIN number comes into play, but I just wanted to demo a few different spots, and again, to drive home the point, 5.8 PIN number is completely gone. Now, when I was in System Admin a couple of minutes ago, somebody pointed this out in Universal Preferences. I think it actually caught their eye in one of the screenshots in the training document. When I was making the statement that in Universal Preferences, General Options, that option to allow use of PIN for login is gone. But we noticed down here, we've got this option still sitting in 5.8, login with PIN by default. That oversight on development's part, it's already been reported. By the time 5.8 goes to GR, this option will be gone as well. And related to PIN is going to be gone. So I missed that one earlier. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned it will be gone as well. Particular topic, no more PIN numbers in version 5.8. Again, feel free for questions or use the chat board. I've got chat board open at all times. I'll move on to our next enhancement, ED integration, electronic dental record integration. I'm sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong things here. I apologize for that. QSI's application, the ER application, they've done some integration of that application into our next-gen applications. For example, if a CHC, a community health center client out there, is using QSI's dental product, electronic dental record application, they're going to now be able to access it from EPM or get to it from EHR. They'll be able to log into it from the application launcher. They've done some integration. So I'm going to system admin with this one. All right. Trying to clean up the screen a little bit as I go there. All right, particular practice. Tab, there are some EDR options that we can set now directly from our system admin security. Now, I don't train this application. I'm not real familiar with QSI's EDR application. I'm more EPM-sided in this world. So I'm not sure exactly, what functionality these options control in that application. But because they're listed under modules, they have our typical access rights of view, add, update, delete, or print. Also, under operations, there are some EDR options. Just being under operations, these are simple, basic yes or no access rights. So, dental application integration into system admin here. One thing I did find and learn, I thought perhaps it would have to be licensed for EDR in order to see these options in system admin. And that's true for development. All clients, regardless of whether or not they're using EDR, so the vast majority of next-gen clients are not using our dental product, they will see these options in system admin. No harm done if they're set with access rights. If you're not using that application and not licensed for it, it's not going to have any impact on the system anyway. So be aware that the models and operations settings related to EDR will be seen by all next-gen clients that upgrade to version 5.8. Now, there are some additional functions here in system admin related to EDR that the client would have to be licensed for in order to see. For a laptop, my database here that I'm training you on today is not licensed for EDR, so I'm not able to show some of this, but I can describe it and then go show you a screenshot of it in the training document. If my database were truly licensed for EDR, over here on the right-hand side, EDR would be listed as a product. We know here in System Admin, if we click on a next-gen application like optical management here, it cleans up modules and operations to over on the left here to show us just those security items related to that application. Well, a license with EDR would have that option to select here, and pretending I just clicked on EDR, we cleaned up the security items over on the left-hand side to display only those for EDR. And I do have a screenshot of that in the training document, just maybe for visual right here. If you select EDR, then on one side you see just the modules and operation security items related to EDR. And something come in on chat, so give me a second to read it. The pin needs to be for characters when changing passwords in EPM. It's still there. Okay, comment. Back to the PIN number removal. I want to do password requirements. Someone just said it that we have in here. PIN length. That will be gone in version 5.8 general release version as well. Again, any remnants that are left in here related to PIN number, development is doing a second go through to make sure they're all removed when it comes to the final version of 5.8. Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot to come and mention this one as well. Has been overlooked, but won't be by the time 5.8 goes to GR. Thank you. EDR integrations again. Let me go back to the training document. If you see the application on the right, it names down modules and operations as we would expect it to. But again, only clients that are licensed will have that functionality. Also, when it comes to full app launcher access in System Admin, so if I go to Edit, Full App Launcher Access, that the applications selected here will be those that display on the application launcher for all users on the system. If a client is licensed for EDR, they'd be able to select it here. It'll be listed alphabetically right under Dashboard and before E8 EHR. So they select it to be on the application for all users or not. And if they don't, then they split on a user-by-user basis by going to specific users and application here to those users. Again, be listed directly under dashboard. Now, licensed again, so we're not seeing EHR in these last couple of examples. So here's the screenshots in the training document. Full app launcher access, they could turn it on for everybody. Or at a level, turn it on for specific users. I'm going to stick in the training document for these because I can't demo these either. If they're licensed for ED, they've added it to the application launcher either for all users or for specific users only. There will be a link to it or a new icon on the application launcher for logging in directly from there. EPM EHR toolbars. In EPM, we all know I can click on an EHR icon to kind of branch out of EPM over to EHR or vice versa. Well, they'd be able to do the same with EDR. Their icon on the EPM and or EHR toolbars. EHR integrations. Again, sure to guess that I shouldn't even throw out percentages, but let's say 90% of next-gen clients aren't doing dental. So they're not dealing with the EDR product, but I know we do have several community health center clients out there that do dental and are using the EDR product. So this would pertain to those types of clients. Before next topic. Okay, to fee tickets, patient data sheet. It's one slight minor change on patient data sheets in version 5.8. And again, as opposed to looking at in the training document, let's go ahead and pull up a patient here in EPM. And on this patient, the insurance is on their encounter. The primary insurance of Cigna is held by the father. The United Healthcare secondary insurance is held by the patient's mother. And then the patient themselves, being a minor, has the third insurance, Medicaid. They're the policy holder of Medicaid. So insurance is involved, which means potentially then on patient data sheets, 3 different individuals listed for insurance purposes. So I'm going to print patient data sheet, and before I print it, I do want to go right back to that. This enhancement I'm showing you right now has been added to both patient data sheets. So I'm only going to use one, but just know it's on the other one as well. I'm going to blow it so we can see it. And the enhancement is essentially down under secondary insurance information. They've added social security number and birth date for the secondary insurance policy holder. Here are new in 5.8. And when I took a look at this, I'm thinking, great, that's nice, okay, but I don't see it up here for primary insurance policy holder. What's the reason they did it for secondary and not primary? So I did go back to development on that one, and they're like, oops, yeah, good point. If we added it for secondary, we probably should have added those same 2 boxes up here. And last I heard, that probably will not make it into ER 5.8, but they've got it on their list for future to make sure it gets in here at some point on the primary insurance section as well. So it's kind of half an enhancement, so to speak. I'm not sure why they were so focused on getting it in here for secondary insurance only, but they have thought about it and will eventually get it added to primary as well. That's all in data sheets. Questions on that? Move on to a fee ticket change, a slight fee ticket change, but I think clients will like it. I'm going to start in the appointment book. I want to go to a particular appointment for a specific resource that I have in my notes here. Let's see. We've got a kept appointment on a patient. Obviously, we can tell it's kept. It's crossed out. It has the word kept next to it. And usually when appointments get checked in, an encounter gets created. And that appointment. So I'm using the appointment to show it is linked to encounter number 1091. At this time, encounter 1091 already has charges on it. So new is now from the appointment book on a kept appointment that's linked to an encounter that has charges on it. If you print a fee ticket, now in version 5.8, sorry, it's taken a few clicks to get there. You're right, get to the point. We'll put this financial information down here in the footer. Today's charges, today's payments, today's ending balance. So let's, as an example, they print this fee ticket at checkout after entering charges to hand to the patient, kind of like a receipt. It will now include information in these three boxes. In 7 and prior, it does not include this financial information when the fee ticket is printed from a kept appointment. The only version 5.7 and prior that we can get the fee ticket to look like this is to go to patient's chart and print it from their encounter. This is nice. We can print it from the kept appointment in the appointment book now in 5.8 and get that financial data. Any on that? Okay, our document is a small one related to form templates and label templates. So file maintenance under code tables. Code table. Where in EPM we use relationships, we use them for guarantor situations, we use them for policyholder situations, so on and so forth. Well, what is in version 5.8 here is this second column over called claim value. So as an example, if we happen to pick this relationship for a patient's guarantor, maybe the patient is a minor and their mother is responsible to pay the bill, so we pick mom as the guarantor, we're going to select this particular relationship for that person in EPM. On claims, that electronic claims, that happens to go out on a claim as a code 19. We don't send the words on an electronic claim. We send this two-digit code over here on the right-hand side. So for starters, they've added the visual here so we can tell in this table now what value goes out on that electronic claim. That's great. Well, now we're going to take this claim value code available in form and label templates. So moving on with the enhancement, this two-digit code here is now available to include on form templates and label templates. Form templates next, and just pull up my form here. It's kind of a silly looking form. I created it just to illustrate some new data fields in version 5.8. Go to my data repository, the patient information set fields, go way down to primary, secondary, and tertiary insurance, so patient level insurances. In all three of these buckets, categories, so to speak, be these fields. There's one for primary, patient, primary insured, relationship code to patient, so relationship code, tertiary relationship code. Also repository under encounter information. So if I come to this topic of data fields, scroll down to encounter level primary, secondary, tertiary. Within these categories, we'll find these three fields: level relationship code, encounter level primary relationship, secondary relationship, tertiary relationship. So we'll have 6 new data fields: 3 level, level, that can pull that two-digit code we were looking at from the relationships table a second ago onto either form or label templates. Well, some might be right now thinking, who cares? Why would a client want that two-digit code on a form template? How is that important on a form or on a label? Well, keep in mind, sometimes we are working with clients in a particular state, and there's with a payer that maybe doesn't use a standard 1500 form or a UB claim form or even an ADA. They have a state-specific form for a particular payer. Quite often, we might have to create those claim forms, form template in file maintenance. Link that form template to the payer in the payers table to accomplish it. An example is the Illinois Department of Public Aid form. They've got a special form. Cases that they would need that 2-digit claim code referencing a patient's relationship to someone else. To see a visual of how this form works or looks in EPM, again, it's kind of a silly form, just pointing out the new data fields. I'm going to go ahead and go in EPM here to a patient's chart and one of those forms. Counter, again, 3 insurances. If I print, because I'm doing this from the encounter, it should for sure be filling in the encounter level data fields. I just want to make sure I'm on the right form. It's this one here. Let's preview it. That's the form we just were looking at in file maintenance, and here's how it might come out. Blank areas up here, these are the patient level insurance fields. Well, the patient, the mother, only had the one insurance of Medicaid. She holds her own Medicaid policy, so patient level insurance, only one insurance is listed, and here's that 2-digit code we're talking about. In level data fields from my form, fill in all 3 sections for primary, secondary, and tertiary. And again, it's this 2-digit code that's new as a data field in version 5.8. Questions on that? This afternoon, I'm hoping everybody's okay. I always assume no questions is good news, and I just keep moving along, but I leave anybody behind, so be sure to unmute and ask or send me that chat message. I just keep going. This one, again, I'm not going to be able to demo, so we're just going to stare at the training document on it here for a second. Consent. Being NextGen's health information exchange application. And basically, in a nutshell, that application allows organizations within a community to potentially share patient information. One patient or company in an area might host the HIE environment, and then other companies and organizations in that area might integrate with that hosted environment. Ultimately, in the end, multiple organizations can share patient data back and forth, patient information. Well, this is not a training on HIE, so I'm just trying to get to one specific enhancement related to it. If anybody wants more information on the HIE application, I've listed a couple additional resources. We do have user guides and white papers on the NextGen website available on HIE. We also offer monthly webinar sessions in case or even someone on this call would like to register for that webinar to learn more about it. Here's what the webinar sessions are called, so look for those specific webinars on NextGen's website and enroll for one or both of them. Enhancement in 5.8, add HIE consent button to the information screen on the tab. And essentially intended to be a way to say this patient consents or approves, they're okay with us sharing information. Organizations. So we go, and this is something, the reason it's in here, I know not every client is using HIE. We definitely have many out there that do. I'm certainly not using HIE on my little laptop here all by myself, but everybody has to be aware of this because everybody, whether you're using HIE or not, is going to see this button in. So let me go to a patient. Sorry. Even on here, I'm utilizing HIE in any way, form, or fashion, but here in demographics on the privacy tab, there's a button. It's out unless your integrated and utilizing HIE, it won't be grayed out. So because it's shown here for all plans, we're going to get questions about it. What's that button for? Why is it grayed out? It is related, obviously, to HIE, and when we go back to the training document, if a user were to click that button, it would open up this next window here that I'm circling with my mouse, the HIE consent button, and they'd have an opportunity from there to add what are called policies, patient-level policies and agreements into HIE. I by no means claim to be the expert on this particular topic, but this is where they would enter any patient-specific policies and permissions for this patient that they've obtained from this patient. Wish more or pop to another environment and be able to show it to you more real time, but for time purposes, we are going to keep moving. It's something we in EPM need to be aware of. There's a new button on the Privacy tab. Next enhancement has to do with insurance authorizations. Keep having that chat board a little bit out of my way to get to certain things. Authorization alerts. To practice preferences, the route to file maintenance here. Going to open practices, go to preferences, and preferences, there's alerts on the left. New and update is this section down here at the bottom where clients can choose, if they'd like, to enable a couple of additional alerts related to authorizations. Display alerts to users when a patient's authorization becomes less than the number of encounters specified here or the number of units specified here. They can turn on one of the alerts or it's definitely something, necessarily every client is going to care about or want to enable. For demo purposes, obviously, I turn everything on so I can show how it works. And I set up here, if a patient has an authorization and it's an encounter-based authorization, when it gets to be less than 5 encounters left on the authorization, I want an alert to display to users so they're aware that there's less than 5 encounters left on that authorization. And that's my other option down there is for authorizations that are set up in units mode to be less than 10 units left on an authorization, start displaying the alert. Now, I'm going to demo both of these here for you in a second. Both of these alerts will display during treatment scheduling, counter insurance selection, posting, and stated in the training document. So there are basically 3 areas: scheduling, encounter insurance selection, and charge posting where the alerts will display. So basically, example settings here, let's go see how these work. I've got a couple of them set up and ready to go here. Is encounter-based authorization. A couple of encounters over here on the left-hand side. This encounter I'm on has United Healthcare Insurance. If I right-click on the insurance and go to authorization, here's the existing authorization. If I open it, I can see it was originally set up to be good for a total of 6 encounters. It's been used on 1 encounter, and down here it is, number 1109. So there's 5 left. Well, my practice preference says start displaying an alert when it gets down to less than 5. We'll attach that authorization to another encounter by attaching that insurance to another encounter. There you go. The alert is now starting to display. So this is an example of what the end users would see. Authorization number whatever for United Healthcare has less than 5 encounters remaining. Alerts, like I do a lot of alerts. I don't know how much users really pay attention to them in the first place. That's why we have the option of turning them on or off. If they get to be too much for users, clients can go to their practice preferences and turn them off. Alerts may be more useful than others. These are just new options. Let's do units-based authorization next. An example of it. It's just a different patient for me here. Nope. Patient, again, has two encounters. United Care Insurance. Look at his authorization. This isn't necessarily the best example, but it's in units mode, which is more of a charge-based mode as opposed to an encounters mode. So in units mode, they can have up to 11 keys that fall within this range here. So just an example, take it for that. We've entered a CPT code charge for a code falling in that range already on one of the encounters. And so what started out as 11 units, this authorization was good for 11 units, we're down to 10. Well, remember my practice preference settings a minute ago. Start displaying an alert when units are less than 10. Let's go to the charge onto another encounter to get those number of units left down to less than 10. Let's go enter one of these charges. Go to a different encounter, charge posting screen, and throw maybe 99214. Now we're down to 9 units left, less than 10, so these start to display. Also does illustrate the point I tried to make a minute ago that you'll see the alerts in appointment scheduling, in concurrence selection, which we saw last example, or during charge posting, which are here in this example. Question 2, alerts based on authorizations. Just an additional note on the side, when I was learning this and playing with this, I started thinking, well, does this apply to referrals too, or is it just authorizations? It's just authorizations. This functionality has nothing to do with referrals. To my practice preferences alerts, it's noted here, authorization alerts. It's not called authorization/referral alerts. So do be aware of that. If a client's looking for this same type of functionality in relation to referrals, we don't have it. This is based entirely for authorizations. Next, we're going to get into some enhancements that are specific to meaningful use to help clients better meet some of their meaningful use requirements. It has to do with race, ethnicity, and a combined language into this one. They're created in the training document, but I'm going to all three at the same time. Race, language, and ethnicity. First, when it comes to race, this enhancement is going to help clients meet their meaningful use objective, which requires providers to be able to select multiple races for a patient when appropriate, or to designate, decline, specify. Maybe patients don't want to say what their race is or ethnicity is, so we need to say they decline to specify. Some changes in file maintenance. Lists, piece table is a new option, decline to specify. So if a patient doesn't want to get that information, fine, that's what I'm going to pick on you, patient. In your demographics, I'm going to say you decline to specify. We have the same option for ethnicity. If I look at our ethnicity master list table in file 8, we now have a decline to specify. And for language, so for the language master list table, we have a decline to specify. So pretty simple so far. Version 5.8, race, language, ethnicity, we have an additional option here in the master list for end users to select on patients. Now, EPM and demographics. So in ethnicity, we have a new option, decline to specify. Under language, we have a new option, decline to specify. Under race, not only do we have a new option, decline to specify, but we also can select multiple races for a patient. So in my example here, this patient is both African American and white. If you happen to pick decline to specify for race, it knocks out all the others. If that's what you pick, I'm trying to turn on some of these others now, and it's not letting me. So to specify under race disables all other options. If you don't select declined, then you can select multiples. Really nothing new and different other than the new decline to specify option. Same with language, a new decline to specify. And one other slight change with language, it's no longer called the language field. It's been renamed to preferred language. Real estate purposes or space purposes here, they weren't able to get the whole word preferred in. But we all know many patients could potentially speak multiple languages, and of those languages, what's your preferred language? So for full use, we've renamed it to preferred language. Here in the chart, those three fields are going to display over here in the chart on the left-hand side of the patient information tab. So if I've selected multiple races, they will all list separated by commas. Of course, if I select that decline to specify in any one or all three of these fields, we would see that as well. Also, language has been renamed to preferred language. Reports. And I've got a memorized one here just to save a couple minutes. On reports, that includes race, updated to accommodate multiple races, again separated by commas. They select decline to specify. We'll see that on reports. And the language column on reports has been renamed to preferred language. On any of this, race, language, ethnicity. Preferred language, ethnicity. And while I'm waiting for questions, I'm just flipping through my document here, make sure I hit all those bases, and I think I did. Again, just pause for any questions. Oh, there. Full name is our next topic. Again, it's been for meaningful use, specifically for any client that is sending information to immunization registries. Immunization registries might require a patient's birth mother's full name, first, middle name, last name, and possibly even a maiden name. And this doesn't necessarily apply to every next-gen client out there, but it's definitely going to apply to maybe pediatric practices that are doing a lot of immunizations on patients and submitting that information to an immunization registry. So, new functionality related to birth mother's full name. Before I go into EPM, in case any of you is wondering what's an immunization registry, I just threw this quick little blurb down here that I pulled quickly from ask.com. Version 5.6 SP1, maiden name field was added to our demographics screen. So we do one field that's really not new. It's been around for a few years now. They've just enhanced or added to that particular field. So setup involved here with this one. Again, not necessarily every client will want it or need it. So it is an option that can be turned on or off. We're going to start out in enterprise preferences. enterprise that includes 4 practices to the preferences. There's a checkbox on the General tab down here toward the bottom on the left, Birth's full name on Relations tab. This almost looks like, oh, okay, if I turn this on, then every practice in this enterprise will have this new feature. And that's not quite how this works. So I'm going to turn it off for a second just so I can show you something, and then we'll come back and turn it back on. I'm going to turn it off, meaning using it in our enterprise. None of our practices need that functionality. So in practice preferences at the practice level, on the topic on the left, there's no option for birth mother's full name. I'm circling a blank area down here at the bottom that I want you to kind of focus right under Enable Encounter Pay or Copay. Now let's go back to enterprise preferences. Turning on at the enterprise level, down here, back to practice level preferences, and it doesn't turn on by default. It's what I had it turned on before. We suddenly see a new option we didn't see a few seconds ago, Birth's full name on Relations tab. So moral of the story is, or the point I'm trying to get across, and I hope I'm making sense, is if you have even one practice that needs to record birth mother's full name on patients, you turn it on in enterprise preferences to get this option in practice preferences. You can go into the appropriate practice preferences and turn it on or leave it turned off, depending on the practice. So I'm turning it on for my practice. The setup there is 2 switches, enterprise preferences, practice preferences. Now, Relations tab, we've enabled these fields right here. There's new stuff on this tab. We'll get to that later. Just focus here in the middle. We've got birth mother's full name, last, middle, and name. Well, we got maiden name actually several versions ago, a couple years ago in version 5.6 SP1. They added it then back on the demographics tab. So now maiden name really sitting in 2 places. This field talks to this field. And what I mean by that is if they already had a mother's maiden name sitting here, it's going to default to this field here. If I make a change in one of the fields, it will change the other field. I added the X's on the other tab. I'll take off the X's on this tab. Again, all I'm trying to show you is maiden name. It's 2 fields in 2 different places, but they treat it as one field that updates both spots, so to speak. So in addition to the maiden name, we now have a spot to free text in a birth mother's last name, first name, middle name, and maiden name. And again, this is going to be important for clients that deal with immunization registries to capture this information on their patients. Enhancement. Okay, that takes us to the next one. Status designation. Again, one is related to immunization registries. Pertain only to those clients for their meaningful use purposes. They've added what's patient status designation in EPM, and we'll see it here in a second. But that basically means is the patient registries that require information. The status we're about to give our patients indicates whether the provider considers a patient to be active or inactive for immunizations within their practice. In other words, is this patient actively coming to our practice for immunizations? Or maybe come to our practice for immunizations at one point, but we haven't seen them because they've moved or gone elsewhere. So now they're inactive in our practice. So again, it's information needed by immunization registries, and for that purpose, we've added a few things here. So we're going to start out in file maintenance. Code table called Patient Status Designation. And I'm going to switch these out because one of them in particular has quite a long description. Tables are pre-installed in file maintenance. You cannot add new items to a code table. We've not been able to. So pretty much what you see is what you got to work with. And the reason they're called code tables is because these are standard codes. This is what would ultimately be sent to the immunization registry, an A, an I, an L, an M, a P, or a U. This is the end user is going to pick on a patient in EPM, and this is what goes to the registry over here on the right-hand side. They're standard codes. That's why we don't allow clients to add new items in these tables. Training document, because when I first was looking at this, I'm like, what's the difference between this inactive and this inactive and this inactive? And there's 4 inactives here. What I happened upon in the development specs for this enhancement, I diagram, and it's a little overwhelming, and we're not going to review this entire diagram. Just know it's here, review it on your own time. It has some nice information in it, but this is what caught my eye down here. Be important to include in our document. This gives kind of a nice description of what's the difference between this inactive where they've moved and gone elsewhere versus this inactive that's unspecified versus another inactive versus the 4th inactive. So this just helped me better understand some of those inactive statuses. So supplemental information for all of you here in the training document. Now into EPM and see where we actually indicate one of these immunization statuses on a patient. Go to graphics. It's going to be on the status tab. With these statuses that we've always had. So this is new. I'm not here to talk about any of that. What's new is this section down here called Patient Status Designation. This is the information for immunization registries. Pretty simple to add. As we all know, you normally click on that open menu button and choose new to add something new in a section. Here's those statuses we just saw from file maintenance in code tables. So pick a status for patient, enter effective date. Expiration date is grayed out until a status has been saved. Once you've saved it, you can go back into it to add an expiration date. I'm going to cancel here to not actually add a new one because I've got a couple already here. So this started out with an immunization status of active in my practice. If I open that, it was effective January of 2004 through through April 3rd of 2007. So you can see here I was able to come back in after to add an expiration date. And then add a new status for the patient. They're inactive now in our practice for immunizations because they've moved or gone elsewhere, effective April 4th of 2007. And with most things in EPM that involve effective and expiration dates, you cannot have 2 entries with overlapping dates. If you make that type of an entry, it'll be batch and say you have overlapping dates. So in other words, you can only have one status at a time, in effect at a time. Question, it's not a difficult thing. I did get a question the other day, can we somehow turn this section off on this? Maybe, it's a client that has nothing to do with immunizations, and they don't even want this here to confuse their users or whatever, and unfortunately the answer is no. There's no setting in practice preferences that turn this on for us. It is a standard enhancement that will be seen by all clients on the Status tab. Whether or not they use it is up to them, as long as they understand it's for immunization registry information. And the yellow notepad down here hopefully does clarify that. Patient status designation will be reported to the immunization registry for practices that are configured to report this information. In other words, client, you may not necessarily need to utilize it even though it's here. We can't turn it off and it could go away and disappear. Everybody's going to see it when they upgrade to 5.8. Okay, question. Let me pause just for a moment. Dan asks, don't you think the field should be renamed, though? Who reads yellow note? I agree more with the yellow note, and I can't disagree with her saying, shouldn't this maybe be renamed? And that was brought up to development back in February when we in corporate training were being shown all these enhancements, people report as well. That was the first words out of our mouth. Can we rename this section and call it patient status for immunizations or something like that? And the answer was no. I don't recall at the moment what the specific reason was, but it had something to do with the verbiage that the immunization registry uses. The immunization registry knows these as a patient status designation, so it was very important that we reflect it under that same verbiage in our application. So James, I disagree. I think personally I would like to see a couple extra words here. Patient immunization status. Right. Who reads the yellow notes? Probably most people don't. But only what you see, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, what you see is what we got. Any questions? That takes us to our next enhancement called location designation. This is a meaningful use objective for clients that submit syndromic surveillance information to a public health agency that might require a code indicating what type of facility a patient was seen in for their treatment. Okay, we have place of service and type of service in our application, but this is something that's a bit different. It's a different data element that we need to send across an interface for clients involved in syndromic surveillance or involved with submitting syndromic surveillance information. So Section 5.8, what they've done, it's read the location. This one is invisible to the end user in EPM. It's all file maintenance based. If I go to the locations table, up one of my locations, they've added a new field in here called location designation. I jumped the gun a bit. I'll come back to this. I should have started under code tables. We have another new code table. Code designation. Syndromic surveillance include one of these 4 types of designations that indicates the type of facility a patient was seen in for treatment. Either they were seen in an emergency care facility, a medical specialty, primary care, or urgent care facility. Again, code table, we can't add new ones. These are standardized codes that are needed and wanted via the interface. These are the 4 choices we're dealing with in a new code table. When we go to the locations table, locations called location designation, where they can link one of those 4 codes to each of their locations. Again, it's not a red required field. Not every client is going to give 2 hoots about this. The only ones that are going to give 2 hoots about this, sorry, I don't know why I'm saying hoots, that's the first out of my mouth in a while, I'm getting kind of silly this afternoon, are those that are submitting that syndromic surveillance information. And again, this syndromic surveillance. Here's a quick definition for you that I just quickly grabbed off of ask.com in case anybody's wondering. Clients know. A client will know if they submit this information through an interface. To a location, there's really nothing from an end user perspective. We still get our encounters with a rendering provider and a location. And that location having these designations on it, it'll be picked up and ultimately sent through the interface. Roles related to syndromic surveillance information. Health agencies gathering this syndromic surveillance information may require information regarding persons that are not necessarily related to a patient. They're specifically interested in knowing who might be caregivers for a patient, or emergency contacts for a patient, or next of kin for a patient. New support role functionality where we're going to be able to indicate that this person's a caregiver, an emergency contact, or a next of kin. We're going to start out again in file maintenance tables. So code tables here in version 5.8. We have a code table called support role type. Caregiver, emergency contact, or next of kin. From there, I'm going to go to the relations table, relationships table, I should say. Earlier regarding another topic, this claim value over here. And this is something I can't show you on my current version of 5.8. I'm running in the lower right-hand corner of my screen, version 5.8.088. Development, I think today is probably up to version 5.8.090 something. I just can't keep up with them. They're, as they make changes and defect fixes and add the enhancements and whatnot, new version, leading up to general release in October. I can't keep up with them. So I'm going to start these training sessions. I decided I'm not upgrading anymore. I'm staying on my 88 until training is over. So I can only show you via the training document is there are going to be some new relationship codes added to the relationships table. Specifically, these ones here will be new in version 5.8. In my version of 5.8 at the moment. If I would upgrade to 5.8.090, they're added primarily for this support role functionality. And we typically in EPM use relationships for insurance subscribers and for guarantors or for head of households. Well, now we've got this thing called a support role. So we've got something new within a patient's chart that could, involve other types of relationships like friends or servers. So this one kind of throws me. I'm not sure what trainer means. Does that mean, a physical? I don't know. But anyway, these are the new items coming in version 5.8, and they're being added for support role purposes. Table, we have some new relationship codes. Now let's go to EPM. Make sure I'm my right patient, and I am. I'm going to demographics. Well, let me stop. There's a couple places we can get to support role information from. You can get in the lookup icon on a person record and enter support role information. You can get to it from a chart, which is where I am at the moment, obviously. And in it, I can either go to the relationship contact guarantor tab down at the bottom of the chart. Here's a new support role section. Or I can be in demographics on that tab and get to the support role section here. So just a couple different ways to get to the exact same spot. And we all know if you can get to something in EPM one way, there's usually 2 or 3 other ways to get to the same thing. All right, so I'm going to play here and do the rest of the demo from this specific area. Are pretty easy. Again, there's a Norton button here, open menu button. If you want to add a new support role for a patient, Norton, type in their last name, first name, select relationship, again, that eventually will include new things like friend, brother, sister, and their support role to the patient. This is the code table I showed you a moment ago. They're either a caregiver, next in, and or an emergency contact. Fields that are not read and required, we all know you have to at least fill in the red ones if it's all optional. And I'm going to go ahead and cancel at this point, not to add a new one, because I've got these existing ones. In this example here, Catherine is the patient's parent, and role to the patient, she's a caregiver, she's an emergency contact, and she's next of kin. Franklin Hamilton here, who I mistakenly at one point entered twice, so I hid one of them, which does bring up the topic. You can't delete these. What you can do is hide them, so that's to be aware of. Since I'm here twice, I hid one of his entries. Here's the other entry. First name, last name. In this example, I did go ahead and add his address, telephone number. He's a grandparent, an emergency contact to the patient. What do you understand about these support roles? These aren't person records in the system. MI, a person number. People up here, this is not new. We've had this all along. If I open up one of these records here, it takes me to the full-blown patient demographic screen, and this person got an MPI number assigned in the system, which means I can search for this person and find them, either from the lookup icon or the chart icon. Cells are a completely separate table in our database that not assigned a person number. I cannot expect to search and find these people. So for a minute, I'm going to use Franklin Hamilton as my example. If I go to the lookup icon or the chart icon and try to find a Franklin Hamilton, it's going to beep at me and say he doesn't exist. Support records are not person records. They don't find an MPI person number, therefore they're not searchable in the database. It's important we understand that. I think it's going to be a little, again, I make comments on these internal classes that I wouldn't necessarily make in front of a client. I personally think this could potentially be a bit confusing to clients. As long as we understand it, hopefully we can convey that information and make them understand it. Records. These are text words. Okay, now Catherine for a second. She's up here as my parent. She's here as parent, as the contact, giver, next of kin. Two separate records that have nothing to do with each other. And that, if I start up here, make a change to this demographic, I'm just going to throw a couple letters on the end of the last name, save it. So now, I can do anything down here. Or if I open this one and make a change and save, fine. But it didn't impact this. They're separate records, maintained separately. One has a person number and is searchable in the database. The other is not. And we have another yellow note trying to make the point I was just trying to make. If you make a change to one, it doesn't update the other and vice versa. There's in the database. Take a couple seconds and do a little bit of cleanup to get rid of that junk I've got here. And ask any questions so far on these support roles. Usually needed by some clients, syndrome surveillance information through an interface for meaningful use. One more thing I think I have to show you on this I do see a question. I'll come back to your question in just 1 second, Marcy. You can create a support role from existing relationship. Father up here is an example. The patient relationship to her dad already in the system. Father is searchable. He's a PI record. I can find him. Want to add father as a support role down here, I can right-click on an existing relationship and create a support role from there. I go on it, it opens the support role information, pulling in his name, his address, his phone number, his relationship to the patient. All I'm really left with is indicating what is his support role to the patient. And hit OK, and you're done. But again, if I were to do that, I would then have father up top and father below, mother up top, mother below. They're two separate records, have nothing to do with each other. Updating one does not update the other. Okay, let's look at Marcy's question. Marcy asks, will the support roles and birth mother's full name information be added to the patient data sheets? That's a darn question, and I honestly don't know. I can tell you a definite in version 5.8, no. There are data sheets in version 5.8. Will at some point in the future, I don't know if development has thought about that. That's an excellent question, Marcy. I'll try to convey that onto development to see if that's in their thoughts in the future, but it's definitely not here in version 5.8 at this point in time. On support roles. Or a couple more things, I guess. Let me go to the training document on this instead of trying to demo it, again, for time purposes here. Which page is it on? It's on page 50. One more. Blow this up so we can see this a little bit better right here. If a user is entering a support role on under a person, and support role they're entering has the same last name and first name as a support record that already exists, they'll get this potential duplicate warning. If I were to go back to my patient and go to add a new support role and type in the same last name and the same first name as somebody that's already sitting there as a support role, I'm going to get this pop-up message. So there's a duplicate check. Again, it doesn't prevent me from creating that duplicate, as we in my example. It's at least a warning. Is related to EHR in support roles. EHR on the patient demographics template in EPM 8.3. Now EPM 8.1. So again, I could go into EHR and go to the demographics template, and let me do that. Make sure I'm on the right patient up here. Yes, this is Mary, and I'm going to go ahead and get to a demographics template. 3, not working my KBM 8.1 right here, but on this particular template down here in this section that I'm circling with my mouse, about 2/3 of the way down, patient relationship / support role information. E and EHR will talk to each other in KBM 8.3, meaning if we enter the support role information in EPM, it'll populate this section of the patient demographics template in EHR, or vice versa. If EHR enters the information here in the template, it'll automatically populate the EPM section. So come KBM 8.3, support role information will be shared between EPM and the patient demographics template in EHR. Any other questions on support roles? I think that's about what I have to say on it. Okay, keep going here. Oh, too small. Filters. This is just a slight enhancement. It's one that, after it's here, it's like, I can't believe we didn't have this before. Never realized it, never thought about it. But clients might, at times do screenshots of a report or a report filter. And what they need is some sort of proof, that a report they've generated came from a certified application, like our NextGen EHR. So if a client is going in and doing screenshots along the way, of a report or of the report filter, no in version 5.7 or prior does a report filter have the word NextGen on it. We do in 5.8. So if we close up the chart here, if I go to any report in EPM or in EHR, and I'll just do a daily charges report. The report window now says NextGen. If a client for any reason is doing a screenshot of this as documentation or trying to document where their report came from, it does clearly say NextGen. So this is the enhancement, just a word up here in the header. Into that, I've added a couple more points in the training document that clients have always had the ability to do. They may have forgotten about it, but if they want to prove or somehow say that this report came from NextGen, they did have other options and still do. On the footer, actually let's go to a memorized report I've already got here. On that footer of a report, they could always enable an additional header to the report from NextGen, an additional footer at the page on their reports to indicate a report came from NextGen, or on the last page of a report, they add 5 additional addendum lines, I'm only using one of them, to indicate a report came from NextGen. So the report filter, NextGen up there, that's the enhancement in 5.8. This is just legal. Don't forget, these were also options that have always been available if a client is trying to show somehow, some way that a report came from NextGen. So if I go run the report, you could in the header, or you need to go into preview mode here for a second, or in the footer. Addendum line I showed you. Addendums print on the very last page of a report. So maybe the last page of the report, and I need to move my chat window here. And the report was generated from NextGen EPM. Okay, so aren't new functions. It's just something I thought was related and warranted mentioning in the training document. Again, the main enhancement is the word NextGen on the report filter windows. On that, I have one topic left. How am I doing on time? I'm not even watching my clock. Doing good. Perfect. All right. Go. Audit. NEM's advanced audit tool is required for a client that upgrades to version 5.8. Advanced audit is not new to us. It's been since, I'm thinking 2010 with 5.6 is when it first came out. So we've had this thing called NextGen Advanced Audit for a few years now. And essentially, over the course of time, I'm sure we have many clients utilizing it, but not all. As of version 5.8, and I'm not sure how this is going to be enforced. I'm sure there's processes and procedures in the works, but come 5.8, when a client upgrades to 5.8, they're going to have to implement NextGen Advanced Audit if they haven't already. And the reason is for HIPAA and meaningful use purposes. What we're trying to do is make sure all NextGen clients are doing their absolute best to document access to electronic patient health information. I'm going to do a demo of this advanced audit here in a few minutes, But think of it this way. If you've never heard of or know absolutely nothing about advanced audit, maybe you're familiar with our significant events that we've always had in NextGen. I think of the advanced audit tool as being significant events on steroids. And let's pause there and go back to EPM and kind of do a quick review of what am I talking about even with significant events, in case there's anybody on that doesn't know. There's significant events. There's many different items that can be turned on or off, and the ones that are turned on are essentially records that the system will record in a patient's chart. For example, if I go to an account on someone and establish a budget plan for them, this being turned on, that means it's going to record in their account the date and time and the user that established their budget plan. Someone accesses a charge on a patient's encounter and changes a charge field. Maybe they change a diagnosis code on the charge. Since this is on, it's going to record the date and the time and the user that changed that diagnosis code. These are not new. We've had significant events as long as I've been at NextGen, which is a long time. And essentially they're a way to either enable or disable certain events, user activities. Think of them as user activities. They are recorded in patient charts for future reference and access. Now, let's go look at a patient's chart as an example. I've been out of this patient's chart a million times during this session. And significant events, anything I've done that's considered a significant event would be recorded in this patient's chart on the Clinical History Notes tab over here on the left under History. I expand down History and click on Chart. Here's July 16th, or no, that's yesterday, sorry. Here's 17th. You know, every time I come in and access this chart, time, access the chart. Or time, my name, I close the chart. Date and time, my name, I did this. These are our significant events. Okay, again, these are not new. Way to kind of audit some user activities, but the advanced audit tool is by far much more robust. What I mean by that is, if you look at this listing of significant events, we do have a nice size listing here. Sorry, I'm scrolling, and I'm not sure how that looks on your end, but I've never counted them. But let's say there's 100 things here that can be enabled. 100, let's say. Well, advanced audit has about 1,000 items that can be enabled. So it's much more robust, can capture much more information, particularly any types of items related to electronic patient health information. So document, just some background information here on why HIPAA wants, people or clients to track their access to electronic health info, a little bit about significant events that I just reviewed with you a moment ago. And bottom line is that sure all clients are doing their best to comply with HIPAA and meaningful use guidelines related to electronic PHI access. That all clients are going to have to implement advanced audit if they haven't already when they upgrade to version 5.8. Now, I have time or the ability to turn this into a training session on the advanced audit tool. So again, kind of like in that previous section, there are tools on NextGen's website. We have user guides available on the audit tool. We have an installation guide. We've got a how to use it, how to use the report tool user guide. We also have monthly webinar sessions. This is the name of the webinar. Clients or anyone on this call right here, right now, can go to NextGen's website and enroll in one of these webinars to learn more about it. I'm going to do a real quick, easy, cheesy demo here in a few minutes. And again, it's primarily for time purposes. But before that, advanced audit in version 5.8 are these additional events. Okay, so events that were not available to turn on and record in relation to patients prior to version 5.8. So things like closing the chart, viewing a claim, encounter lookup criteria. You know what that is? That means I go to encounter lookup and I have some criteria button. It's going to record my lookup criteria. It's going to record the date, the time, my name, and the criteria I used when I was looking up encounters. It can be that detailed. So through each and every one of them, these are new in Advanced Audit in version 5.8. The other to be aware of in regards to these new events are seen in EPM as significant events, but they're grayed out. And I'll show you in a second in the EPM application. Gray means you cannot enable or disable these new items up here via significant events. The Advanced Audit edits happen to appear in significant events, but if you enable them, you have to go to the Advanced Audit tool to enable them. So let me pop into EPM again, and let's go back to those significant events. And you'll see there are several here in my version 5.8 that are grayed out. As we're talking about, these are really advanced audit edits will be recorded. And since they are advanced audit edits, they get recorded in patient charts like a significant event does. They'll be recorded in the audit reporting tool. Okay, to be aware of, because I'm sure we're going to get questions after clients upgrade. How come there's all these new significant events showing, but they're all grayed out? It's really significant events. They just happen to display here. They're really new advanced audit options. They display here, I'm not sure. I don't have a good answer in case anybody's wondering that. Just know what they are. They're really new advanced audit edits. And I'm going to pause to see a question. Someone's asking if advanced audit requires a license, and I think you're going down the road of, do clients have to pay for advanced audit? So look at License Manager for a second. There is a separate license for advanced audit. So it's not, or it's the old one. Am I on the line? I think, and might be able to help me answer this question. Give me just a second here. Favor and unmute your phone, *6. I think you might be able to help me with something here. Thank you. How are you? Thanks. I'm glad you're on here because I think you'll be able to help me answer this question. This audit reporting tool here that's licensed, that's the old one, isn't it? Or do you?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think clients have to purchase and be licensed for the advanced audit tool that I'm talking about right now. It's kind of BP. It comes with the application. It's not a separate license they have to have. Now that I'm seeing this, though, I may need to confirm this. So who was it to ask the question? It was Shelley. Shelley, thank you for the question. In my mind, I was thinking, no, it's not an additional purchase. It's not a licensed. It's kind of like BBP. It just comes with the next-gen application. But now we're in License Manager. This caught my eye, and now I'm starting to wonder. So I will confirm and find it out for everybody. Let me scribble myself a note. You know what? But I can't imagine and is going to require every client to purchase a license for this audit tool to upgrade to 5.8. That's not good on our part, I wouldn't think. So go ahead.
But I think it does need a license.
I'm going to confirm that.
Yeah, they
have to pay for it. You know that?
I think it does require a license.
Okay, so there's my answer. I'm sorry, I was kind of going, wishy-washy on that, but I think Mark confirmed for us. They will need a license for it, but it sounds like they don't. It's not something they have to pay for. And are you confident in that answer, Marla?
I can for you.
Oh, if you could do that real quick while we're still online, I would really appreciate it. It not only would answer the question fully, but it will also answer it for me and everyone else as well. So we're looking into that one, Shelley. I don't have an additional purchase, but let's try to find out. All right, what to do next is demo of where clients go to set it up and how it ultimately works. Now, this advanced audit is this is an FYI for trainers and people on the line today that have a next-gen laptop. You're going to be able to run next-gen advanced audit on your laptop. I asked that question a while back, and the answer was we've tried it with users before, and it just causes major problems. So no, we're not going to run it on our laptops. So for me to demo it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out to a remote server in Horsham and demo it on our corporate training environment. So give me just a moment while I connect out to a server in Horsham. I'll be able to demo it from there. Server in Horsham, I'm going to log into NextGen log NextGen to get to the application launcher, and from there I'm going to go into System Administrator. All done in System Admin. The training environment is still on version 5.7, which means I have PIN number access, but I want to be HIPAA compliant and log in this way instead. And to connect, there we go. All right, from System Admin, the View menu. There's an option called Advanced Audit Setup. Again, it's not new. It's been here since version 5.6. And with getting too technical or anything here, because I can't get too technical. I don't have that kind of a head. So this is very simplified. On the General Setup tab, they would enable Advanced Auditing. In this section, they would indicate one or more servers that are going to capture all these auditing records. A moment ago, I said Advanced Audit has like 1,000 edits they could enable. Well, about 1,000 edits on a large client with hundreds of thousands of patients, we're going to have millions and millions of records in no time at all. So you know, and I have asked this question before, that NextGen really recommends that clients have a separate server for capturing these advanced audit edits. And what they would do is indicate the server and what percentage of the edit load do they want on that server. It has to total 100. They could have 2 servers and split it 50-50. They could have 3 servers, 33, 33, and 34. But again, edits have to go somewhere and be stored somewhere, and it's typically on a separate server. So pulling it and indicating one or more servers for storing the edits. On the Setup tab, this is where the meat and bones of the setup is. The first thing I'm seeing here are the 2 enterprises on our system. If I span down one enterprise, I see the 3 practices within that enterprise. I'll expand down one of the practices, and now here are all of the edits, advanced audit edits that can be enabled. For example, if I look under the person category, there are many related to person, MPA related field changes and whatnot. Under Encounter, there are many options. I'm just trying to click on a few that we, as mostly EPM people on this call, can easily relate to. Count level type things. Some of them look very much like significant events. A budget disabled, a budget established. This is separate from the significant event we saw in EPM called budget established. The significant event got recorded in their chart. These don't get recorded in charts. These are recorded in the advanced audit tool only. But again, I'm hoping you're starting to see, let's see if I can resize this window. I don't think I can. If I scroll up and down here, these are just categories of events, and within each of these categories, there are multiple individual events that can either be enabled or disabled. It's like our significant events. A client doesn't necessarily have to record all 1,000 of them on every patient. I'm turning a few of them off that we're not interested in recording in our organization. But when they first implement advanced audit, every single edit will be enabled. You want to record all this information. So I'm not making any changes, but really that's all there is to the setup. It's on a practice level. Within each practice, you can enable or disable selected events that you want recorded based on your activity related to patients in the system. Question? It's pretty simple. It's not going into EPM and turning on significant events. Once it's been enabled, the server's been defined, and the edits, as I'm calling them, have been enabled, recorded. Now, report or look at something specific. They're going to the Advanced Audit Report tool, and that's going to be set up to be a separate icon on the server, like this one is here. This is Next Gen. This is how the system admin a second ago. The setup for the tool is how I'm getting to the report tool. I'm going to click it. Not being 5.8 yet, we've got a PIN number login option, but it's a basic or standard next-gen login, as you can see. A large window takes up the entire screen, but what we're going to do is work our way down the left-hand side of this screen to tell the system what I want to report on. So I'm going to start up here in the Enterprise field. In the ellipsis, here's our two enterprises. I'm interested in looking at recorded data for this enterprise. Move it to the right. Very similar functionality to what we have in a lot of windows in EPM with our blue left-right arrows in the middle. Just double on it to move it over to the right, or double click on it on the right to take it back off. Basic functionality. Okay, critical. With price, here it is. I want to get this practice. We get down to a particular user. Maybe the client feels they have a particular user that is, looking at patient charts when really have no business looking at patient charts, or, whatever the situation is. You can look at this specific individual. Maybe I'll select Next Gen Admin. That's probably the line most of our trainers use on this environment. Let's see what kind of activity this person has been doing. And then can even narrow it down to a specific patient in the system. So if I feel this specific user has been looking at a high-profile patient's chart when they have no business being in that high-profile patient's chart, I could narrow it down to that high-profile patient. And just in EPM, if you leave any of these blank implies all. This enterprise, this practice, activity by this user for any patient in the system. Then here are events again, just like we saw in System Admin a few minutes ago, but in this report tool, they're all turned off by default. It assumes you don't want to run a report right now for every single audit in here, or edit in here. So when a client is coming in here, they're coming in here for a very specific purpose. So what I'm going to do is maybe enable all encounter activity. I want to see any encounter-related activity that's gone on. I want to see any person-related activities that have gone on. And maybe I want to see chart activities that have gone on. In a category, pick and choose. I'm just easy route for demo purposes here and selecting all events within 3 categories. bottom is a date range, kind of like a filter 1 tab on our reports in EPM. What date range do you want to look at? Maybe I'll look at the first couple weeks of July. So I'm going to start with July 1st through the end of last Friday, July 12th, a 2-week time frame. Again, I'm looking at this practice, this user, what have they been doing related to charts, encounters, and persons within 2 weeks, and a bunch of results in the end. Do I want to see all results, the 100, the first 500, 1,000, 5,000, or 10,000? I can do some listing of the records displayed by this last field here. I'm going to go ahead and display all of them. And here are the results based on what I've asked for. On this user column, this is all user admin NextGen, because that's the specific user I asked for. I've got some related activities. I've got encounter-related activities. I'm not sure if I have any, a few person-related activities. So this thing this user has done, chart, encounter, person-wise, in the last 2 weeks. I think of this is such a simple tool. People tend to be kind of scared of it. I don't know. I've never seen it. I don't think I could ever train it or use it. I mean, look at that left-hand side. It's pretty darn simple. What do you want to see? And then hit the search button, and you get exactly what you asked for here. Ultimately, you can sort, of course, by any of these column headings to group the chart-related activities together, encounter-related activities, so on and so forth. So here's an encounter-related activity by that user where they created what? Oh, an encounter on this date, this time for this patient, and some additional notes in reference to that over on the right-hand side. These can be printed, and that's essentially about all the time I have for this quick little demo. So again, it is an extra application. It's not accessible from our application launcher, like EPM and EHR and file maintenance, so on and so forth. And it is going to be a requirement for every client upgrading to 5.8 to implement this. I'm going to go ahead and log out of this corporate training server. I just wanted to do a bit of a demo. I hope that was helpful to some folks that maybe have never seen it before. And I can come back now and stop sharing my desktop. I'm going to unmute all phones. It may take a few seconds. Hang on, please. Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's pretty much it for this session. Marla, if you're still there, were you able to track down a quick answer for us on that license for advanced audit?
Checking.
Okay, Mark, you could do me a favor when you get an answer, send it to me, and I'll forward it to everyone.
The person I did talk to thinks that there is a cost just for installation and perhaps training, but they're going to verify that and let me know.
Oh, installation and training.
Installation of a couple hours and training. I do not believe that there's a license needed, though.
It's solving project managers and account executives on my calls. Thank you, Carl. Ones that deal with the contracts and the money and the things a lot more than we sometimes do as trainers. So going back to your original question, hold on a second here. Oh, come on. I'm trying to resize a window on my side, and that doesn't seem to be working. That's the question. So it's sounding more and more like there might be somewhat of a charge to it, primarily for installation and training purposes only, but not necessarily a huge costly price license for it.
Yeah. Always opening up calls to have the advanced audit installed as well as the medical summary utility. So, and we're never asked for licensing on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
On any of the other topics we've covered today. I know we're a few minutes over here. I appreciate you hanging on with me, but I do want to check one last time for any additional questions.
Shelley, can I ask you a question completely unrelated to all of this?
Sure.
The 7 for Optic, have they sent out the request for the meetings yet on those ones?
I need to look. What we've been doing is sending out the WebEx information the day prior to a session. If you're registered for a session number 7, let's say this coming Friday, you not get the WebEx information until Thursday. I've been doing it with all of my sessions as well, the ones that I'm conducting here. The WebEx info for today's session is being sent out the day prior to those folks that are enrolled for the session.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
You bet. Any other questions? Participant panel. If you have no questions and you've got the training document, feel free to drop off at this point. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time. If you do still need the training document, hang on with me and I'll repost it for you now.
Okay, good stuff.
Have a great day. And again, training document, folks, hang on with me. I'm going to find it for you. And their training document should see a file transfer window at this point. Go right-click download. This window sitting here a couple minutes to make sure you have ample time for it to download. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and drop off the session myself. So have a great day, everyone, and thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
The terminated in 2 minutes.